What the city is talking about. This is Montreal Now on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
That is James MENNIE over at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, don't know if you heard Pierre Fitzgibbon a couple of minutes ago, but I guess those rumors of him leaving, at least the sense I got in having spoken to him, was not now, not really, really soon. Says he's got a couple of projects to finish up, but then after that, of course, it's wide open.
Of course, and then the other question, of course, is how long will these projects take? And will you be gone in 10 days or in 10 weeks or in 10 months? Listen, I don't think, and don't forget, it's a great getting this interview because he's one of the most powerful cabinet ministers, indeed, in terms of his potential to affect the future of Quebec and that of our listeners is infinitely greater even than that of Francois Legault. I mean, Minister of Energy, Minister of the Economy. But it was kind of funny because you're talking to him, I'm listening to you talk to him about, electric vehicles and where do we go and taxing gas and so on and so forth. And as you're talking to him, I just punched up the latest figures on electric vehicles. On their sales, and the fact that in 2027, Quebec is, if you'll excuse the pun, pulling the plug on all subsidies for the use of electric vehicles, I'm not entirely sure we're not going to be heading for a big brick wall because the only hard figures I see in terms of vehicle use in Quebec, and we've discussed this repeatedly, is that Quebec, I believe, leads the country when it comes to SUV and pickup truck ownership, and it keeps growing every year. Indeed, those large model vehicles now outnumber sort of conventional, sedans and regular cars, if you will. So I find it, I don't know, I get this feeling of apprehended dread when I hear anyone in government talk about electric vehicles, battery construction. I'm not sure that we're not looking at a big, fat, giant electrical bubble that may pop to the dismay of a lot of people in Quebec and indeed in Canada.
So when you say a big bubble, in what sense, Jim?
In terms of the governments are saying you've got to have an electric car, we're going to go to electric cars, we've got to save the country, we've got to save the planet, we've got to save the environment. No one seems to be listening, Aaron. I'm not seeing a big rush on electric vehicles. The only rush I'm certainly seeing in Quebec is in conventional combustion engines, okay? And they're not used cars. These are brand spanking new cars. And in fact, the price of used cars continues to be inflated because of their scarcity and the demand for them. So, I mean, maybe there's somebody there in Fitzgibbon's ministries or someone in the Quebec government or some egghead at some university in Quebec who can explain to me how, don't worry, sleep tight, all this is going to be okay. We'll all be driving electric vehicles in the next 20, 25 years. Although there's absolutely nothing thus far that indicates, to me anyway, that's even close to happening.
So I'm only imagining economies of scale being one, but you're right. I mean, economies of scale meaning the idea is, the more cars are produced, the more prices will come down because those cars remain far too expensive for many people. But you're right. The other issue of Quebec doing away with those subsidies, it's kind of like, giving with one hand and take away with the other.
Yeah. And the whole idea was, even if it was a lost leader, it was to convince people, come on, we're literally going to pay you to drive these things, okay? And now it's saying, oh, no, we're just going to, it wasn't even a phase-out. Even the proponents of zero-emission vehicles were saying, we thought that it might be $1,000 a year, and we knew it wouldn't last forever. But it was like, boom, it's gone, it's finished, it's over. And I am not seeing, to me, electric vehicles remain remarkable insofar as I am not seeing so many of them that it's a blur, Aaron. Those little pale green license plates still pop up like the diplomats plates or whatever. They're rare enough. Teslas I can spot from a mile away, and I know those little tiny, they almost look like smart cars are usually like a Leaf or a Volt or something. But I'm not seeing them all over the place, and I'm certainly not seeing them, Aaron. Apart from buses, where they make a big deal, I'm not seeing them in the transport business, which is a huge contributor to greenhouse gas emissions.
Okay, fair point, all of them. Let me talk about this, because I thought typically when we look at the summer, things get quieter in politics. This may not be one of those summers.
Listen, it's very going to be, first of all, the NADA suspends on June 7th, and they don't resume until September 10th. That's a huge bunch of news days to fill. Meanwhile, we have Francois Legault and the CAQ on the ropes, and the only way they seem to be headed is down, despite saying, "Oh no, look, they stopped. They're 22%." The PQ, fine, they're riding high, but we've seen that it's possible that Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, the party leader, could prove to be a liability. He has said certain things that left people scratching their heads, and if you say them in the middle of summer, guess what? They become far bigger news stories. The Quebec Solidaire is going to go through a huge psychodrama, not this weekend, but the weekend after, over which way is it going to go. Does it want to be a party that seeks to the government of Quebec, or does it want to be perpetual, finger-wagging opposition party? And the Liberals, God knows where we're at. They seem to have all gone on vacation till 2025. That's when everything's going to be settled and everything's going to be fine. Don't bother us until then. But this gap is going to have to be filled, certainly by the CAQ. There's going to have to be something to actually turn the ship around, because, yeah, we can say, my God, they have another full year before the election. But the fact is, once you, how can I put it, set down roots in second place, or God help us, third place, and that's not impossible, even over the course of this summer, it's very, very difficult to get out of. All that said as well, is, if the PQ's lead is a lot of sentiment, as in, I hate all the other parties, so I'm going to just park my vote with you, then that's pretty tenuous as well. And don't forget, I know we focus a lot, everyone focuses on Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, but the fact is they've only got 4 seats. And are they going to be able to rally enough people willing and quality people willing to run the next election on the issue of and he's unequivocal on the campaign of sovereignty, of Quebec sovereignty. Another thing he's going to have a big homework assignment for Mr. Saint-Pierre Plamondon. But normally we kind of all sit back and say, it's going to be a silly season or whatever. I don't think so. I think you're going to see a lot of unofficial election campaigns, re-education campaigns or renaissance campaigns for some parties that really are in the doldrums right now and can't afford to stay there. All that said, I think a very, very busy summer, and who knows, there might be a lot more drama than we expected in the months to come.
All right, we got to wrap up, but I want to ask you, because this was my question to start the show, and I'm sure you have an opinion here, Jim. We have now confirmation there will be not one, but 2 presidential debates in the U.S. before the election in November. And I've heard panel after panel after panel discussing the old who stands the most to lose or who stands the most to gain. I asked this question early in the show. I got some very diehard Trump fans, if you will. Apparently, I can't use the word Trumper. This shows that I have a bias of some kind, I'm told.
Yeah.
But I heard them making the case that it would be Trump. And from what I'm hearing, most analysts say they think Joe Biden has the most to lose here. What do you think?
I think they're right, because the fact is Trump is a raving lunatic, but he is the darling of American mainstream media, because he gives them clicks. He makes them money. They don't care if the country's on fire. They don't care if the country burns down. They need to send their shareholders happy news on a monthly basis. And right now, Donald Trump, treating Donald Trump like a regular presidential candidate, like a regular former president, for them is completely normal. Honestly, if I was Joe Biden's advisor, I'd say, you don't debate this guy at all. Let this guy bay at the moon, okay? And even though he had a good moment, remember in the last campaign, when at one point he just looked over and said, "Man, will you just shut up?"
Yeah.
That was a great moment. But you know what? That's lightning in a bottle. I think this time, if it goes in, you'll have, and if nothing else, I guarantee you, Aaron, Biden could wipe the floor with Trump in a debate, and the like I say, the media they're making their money off of Donald Trump. The analysts will go, "Oh man, did you see how old Biden looked? Man, he was slow. Did you see how long he took with that answer?" I think he's got everything to lose and nothing to gain. I would walk away from it, but then again, I'm not Joe Biden. I'm not his entourage, so we'll see what happens.
Great, just what I wanted, Jim. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
You too, buddy.